Hey guys, welcome back to another video. Today we're discussing the 10 most expensive cities to live in the world. These are the places that make you feel like you have holes in your pockets. This list was put together by The Economist, in which they measure over 200 goods and services across 173 different cities. The Economist comes out with this list twice a year, but the pandemic and the supply chain issues around the world really shook up this list. There's a few ones that really surprised me, including one major city that was left off the list. So let's jump right in. Coming in at number 10, Osaka is the third largest city in Japan, and it's often overlooked when compared to their bigger brother, Tokyo. But nevertheless, Osaka is the economic and financial hub of Japan. The city has a cosmopolitan feel and is a real multicultural center. And Osaka is known by many as the best place to eat, drink, and party. Food critics Francois Simon and Michael Booth have dubbed Osaka as the food capital of the world. There's a saying that Kyotoites are financially ruined by overspending on clothing, while Osakans are financially ruined by spending on food. When looking at the numbers, the salaries in Osaka are one of the lowest on the list. However, when considering the high prices, those salaries do not go very far. Overall, Osaka scored a 94 on the World Cost of Living Index. And this index is based off of benchmarking the price of goods and services in New York City. So therefore, New York would come in at an even 100. And if you're not convinced with how expensive Osaka is, just know this, that Osakans greet each other with the saying, "Mokari maka," in my butchered Japanese, which means, "Are you making money?" Number 9. Los Angeles is the third largest city in the United States, home of Hollywood, and what many people refer to as the entertainment capital of the world. However, the LA economy is more robust than just entertainment. It's home to the largest container port in the Americas. And overall, in the world, it has the third largest GDP by metropolitan area, ranking only behind New York and Tokyo. In LA, you'll find many people living lavish lifestyles, dining in exquisite restaurants, and shopping in upscale stores. However, the poverty rate in LA is 20%, which is quite high, which means that for this population, living in Los Angeles is a real struggle. Overall, LA scores a 96 on the index, and salaries are quite high, but so are prices across the board, particularly in housing. However, LA does have a lot of things going for it. It has nice weather year-round, it has the beach and the mountains, but that comes at a cost. And also, not to forget that California has extremely high taxes. Number 8. Copenhagen is the capital and the largest city of Denmark. Copenhagen is a beautiful city. It's also not too big, but not too small. It has shopping options, dining, culture, a vibrant nightlife, and a live music scene. And it's also very safe. Scandinavia is expensive across the board. However, Copenhagen tops the list. When looking at the numbers, Copenhagen scores a 97 on the index. Overall, the median salaries in Copenhagen are quite high, so many Danes are able to live comfortable even with the high prices. But these prices may be overwhelming for tourists. Copenhagen and Denmark consistently rank near the top of the list when it comes to quality of life. So maybe these high prices are worth this high standard of living. Number 7. Geneva is the second most populous city in Switzerland. And a little spoiler, this won't be the only Swiss city that you see on this list. Geneva is a center for international diplomacy. The city hosts more international organizations than any city in the world. Geneva is home to the Red Cross, the World Health Organization, and is a major hub for the United Nations. And let's not forget, Geneva is also a major banking and financial center. Geneva scores a 99 on the index, and the salaries are amongst the highest on the list. But then when you consider the prices, the length that those salaries go are somewhat limited. These international organizations and financial firms in Geneva are able to lure many people from abroad to Geneva, and these jobs pay quite well, but that makes Geneva quite an expensive place to live. Number 6. Well, here it is, the benchmark city itself, New York City, a city that really doesn't need an introduction. Many people argue that New York is the most powerful and influential city in the world. New York has been referred to as the world capital of finance, culture, media, arts and fashion, and food. And it's also home to the United Nations headquarters. Overall, New York scored 100 on the index, and that's just because every price is benchmarked off of New York. As expected, the salaries in New York are quite high, but housing costs in New York are absolutely killer. In the global city rankings, New York consistently ranks alongside London as the only two A++ cities in the world. And maybe when it comes to world influence, London has an argument, but when it comes to cost of living, New York takes the cake. Number 5. Hong Kong is one of the most densely populated cities in the world, which makes sense why it's so expensive to live there. Hong Kong is the major financial hub of East Asia, and it ranked in 3rd in the 2021 Global Financial Index, just behind New York and London. The Hong Kong economy has been fueled by a low tax and free trade environment. Hong Kong also has a major shopping scene. You can find anything from the top luxury brands to street-level shops where you can find great deals on electronics and tailored suits. Hong Kong is another city that can be labeled as a foodie's paradise. Eating out is part of the culture of Hong Kong, which means it's more affordable compared to some of its counterparts on the list. Overall, Hong Kong scores a 101 on the index. The major problem for cost of living in Hong Kong is the housing, just because of the limited space. Similar to LA, Hong Kong has an income inequality problem, which makes housing and living here a real struggle for those on the lower income end. Number 4. Zurich, Switzerland is home to many financial and banking institutions. Just like Copenhagen, Zurich is consistently ranked among the highest cities for quality of living. It's a clean city with beautiful architecture and picturesque scenery. Zurich is situated on Lake Zurich with the Swiss Alps in near distance. There are many ways that you can spend your money in Zurich, from luxury shopping to fancy dining or a night out in the town in one of the many high-end clubs. Zurich scores a 103 on the index, and their salaries are the highest on the list, quite possibly making Zurich the richest city in the world. Number 3. It's no surprise to find the island nation of Singapore on this list. Singapore is constricted by land, so there's nowhere to grow or expand but up, which means there's dense living, which leads to high cost of living. When looking at Singapore as a country, you'd be hard-pressed to find any place with a higher quality of life. Singapore consistently scores highly on the major categories of healthcare, education, housing, and safety. And again, when looking at it as a country, Singapore ranks 2nd on GDP per capita. And it's the only country in Asia with a AAA credit rating. Just like Hong Kong, Singapore is a tax haven, which has attracted many financial institutions. And Singapore is a mix of Chinese, Indian, Malay, and many other expats from around the world, which makes this a truly global city. Singapore comes in with a 104 on the index. And like many other cities on this list, Singapore is a food paradise. But the prices are quite reasonable to eat out because Singapore has a good variety of options, from hawker stands to Michelin star restaurants. But dining is really the only area where you can expect to catch a break, where you better be prepared to pony up for all other areas of living in Singapore. In my opinion, when it comes to this list, there haven't been any major surprises yet. But when it comes to these top 2, you might be surprised. Number 2. Paris is the most visited city on planet Earth. Before the pandemic, Paris would draw in 45 million visitors per year. Paris is the fashion capital of the world and home to many of the most luxurious designers like Louis Vuitton, Chanel, Dior, just to name a few. Paris also has the 2nd most Michelin star restaurants, only behind Tokyo. Big spenders can really go to town in Paris. Paris is truly a dream city where history and Gothic style architecture meet tree-lined cobblestone streets next to outdoor cafes. You can get lost in many of the small Parisian streets or stand in awe of one of the many landmarks. Parisians don't have as deep of pockets as many of their counterparts on this list. That means their money does not go as far, and ultimately the purchase power parity is less, which is the reason why Paris ranks so high on this list. Number 1. It may be a surprise to many, just like myself, but the most expensive city in the world in 2022 is Tel Aviv, Israel. This city is considered the most liberal city of Israel, and is sometimes referred to as the Miami of the Middle East. Tel Aviv has a number of things going for it. The west side of the city is guarded by the Mediterranean Sea and beautiful beaches. Many people across Israel come to Tel Aviv on the weekend for the crawling nightlife across the city. Tel Aviv's been referred to as the city that never stops. And when it comes to eating, Tel Aviv also has good options, anywhere from inexpensive to elegant dining. You can get a delicious falafel and hummus on the street corner to dine at an elegant restaurant. Tel Aviv is a modern city, but you can also step back in time when you enter the Old Town Market or venture to nearby Jaffa. Looking at the index, Tel Aviv scores a 106. When comparing Tel Aviv against other cities in the Middle East, Tel Aviv ranks first in GDP per capita. On the last Economist list that came out, Tel Aviv was previously ranked 6, and they jumped to 1 largely because of the rising price of the Israeli shekel. And that runs out the list for most expensive cities in 2022. Personally, I was surprised to see London and Tokyo left off this list. And let me know in the comments below what you guys thought of this list. And for those interested in reading more, I'll put a link in the description to the actual publication from The Economist on this list. And it's also nice to know that you do not need an Economist subscription to access this publication. Thank you guys for watching. For those of you who enjoyed, please consider subscribing to my channel. We'll make more videos like this in the future. Thank you.